Hello, everybody, and welcome to my World's Prediction Show. In this show, I'm going to predict not only the group stages of Worlds, like ranking, but I'm also going to try to predict all the matches as well, and do a little bit of analysis on like the strengths of the team as I see them from a mental perspective, in terms of when they're going to win which games and against which opponents. So I'm here in San Francisco, got my World's Prediction hat on, my little championship ribbon here keeping me company. And a couple caveats before I start. Obviously, I study mostly Korea and North America, and I watch EU for fun, and I don't really know much about LPL, LMS, and the wildcard teams. So my guesses there are going to be kind of based on just impressions, I guess. Secondly, I'm going to give odds. I'm going to give odds for each match. So instead of calling a winner, I'm going to call a winner and then give like betting odds like 1-1 or 4-1. And obviously, first off, my predictions for TSM are not analytic, so I'm not going to be predicting TSM based on analysis because I think that would be kind of ridiculous since I'm like participating in the tournament as a TSM coach. And I'm also not giving odds for those matches either. I think that'd be kind of ridiculous to give that information away, either to my team or to other teams. I don't want them knowing what I think, and I don't want other teams knowing what I think as well in terms of that. And also, obviously, analytically, I predict pretty bad runs for the wildcard teams, but they are wildcards for a reason, so I don't really know how that all is going to turn out. And so this is mostly like an on-paper summary of what I think about the teams right now, and I'm really excited for all of the cool upsets and crazy things that are going to happen during the next 2 weeks of the group stages. And of course, I do predict 1 or 2 upsets based on wild guesses. So why don't we get right into it? Day 1. I'm going to go right down, and then I will share the results at the end of days 5, 6, 7, and 8. So day 1, right off the bat, we have G2 versus CLG, and I predict a G2 win with a 1-1 odds. So I don't really know who's going to come off here. I think that G2 has a really strong decisiveness. I think CLG does as well. I think G2 tilts easier, so I think if the game goes really, really long, CLG can kind of like just all of a sudden win. You know, they can outlast them. But I think that G2 is going to kind of take it away, and I think that CLG often in the last 2 years comes in pretty confident and then gets bitten for that right off the bat. So we'll see how that holds out. Next game, Rox versus Albus Nox Luna, and I predict that for Rox 1-0, the odds of 4-1. So this is the strongest showing I have against a wildcard team in terms of odds, but I think that coming right out of the bat with Rox and going right into Albus Nox Luna, that this is the strongest odds that I can give. H2K versus AHQ is the next game, and I'm going for AHQ, surprisingly. And 1-1 odds. I don't really know how that's going to pan out. I think opinion-wise, the teams are pretty like at parity. I think that H2K, I've watched a ton of H2K. I've watched 0 AHQ, and I think AHQ is coming in as the second seed. H2K is coming in as a very mechanically, like a team that basically has solid like fundamentals for macro, but I don't think their decisiveness is amazing. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that AHQ has like a really strong set of training partners for the boot camp and for their region, and yeah, they could come out of the boot camp really hot, in my opinion. So INTZ and EDG is the next game, and I'm predicting that for EDG with 4-1 odds because I think EDG is really good. And next one is Samsung Galaxy versus Splice, and I'm predicting that for Samsung Galaxy 1-0, but 2-1 odds. I think that Splice and Samsung Galaxy play the same game, the same exact game. It's very Korean League of Legends, and it's based around setups. It's like how would I quantify it? I would say that, like, let's say you're going to contest a buff or an objective, and you're both setting up around that objective and contesting vision. If you're a Korean team, if you're Splice, you're gonna be fighting and hitting the ward. You're gonna be fighting for the red buff. You're gonna try to get it and get out and like get that objective win and set up for the next play, or look for that clean executed engage. If you're a Chinese team or LPL or LMS team, you're going to actually use that objective to engage the fight. You're not going to care that much about red buff or dragon or blue buff. You're going to care about drawing them to you so that you can then like start poking them, engage on them, fight them, skirmish them, whatever. So I think that like Splice and SSG are going to play the same game, and that SSG is going to be better at it this time around. And then TSM RNG, obviously. Oh, TSM in the house. 1-0. No odds. Day 2. Let's kick it off with SKT and C9. And surprisingly, it's my first upset. I'm going to predict this for C9 1-0 because I think SKT is very disrespectful in draft coming out of the gate. I think that their players will kind of like usually have a little bit. This is what I see from Champ Select all through the split with them. It's either their coach or their players have a little bit too much like flexibility in draft off of meta until they're under threat, and then they conform very strongly to the meta. So I think that C9 is going to come hot off the presses, SKT is going to come loose off the presses, and they're going to upset them 1-1 odds. Next one, Flash Wolves versus IMEI. I don't know anything about IMEI. Flash Wolves looks really strong. They come as the #1 seed. I'm calling this one for Flash Wolves, 3-1 odds. TSM versus SSG. Obviously, TSM. Next match, RNG versus Splice. I'm calling this one for Splice, 1-1 odds. I think that these are two different styles clashing. And I believe that the real question for playing with like kind of a skirmish, pressure heavy, kind of combative style versus like setting up plays and drafting for the team fight, I think that you have to be able to trade well, trade objectives well, and stave off bleeding and not make mistakes. That's really hard to do. And I think that like when the pace of the game ramps up, it's even harder to do. So I think Splice is still not going to have found their footing yet against RNG. I think that their game against SSG is not going to prepare them well for that because it's going to be a very measured game. And then I think that they're going to go into RNG and they're going to have a more chaotic game, and it's going to be stage. So like everything's going to fall apart in mid setup, and yeah. So 1-1 odds though, because I'm not very confident about that. H2K versus INTZ. I'm calling this one for H2K, 3-1 odds. I think that it's possible that they'll just outclass them in terms of laning phase. So that puts H2K at 1-1 so far on the record. And then EDG versus AHQ. I'm calling it for EDG, 2-0 now. AHQ 1-1, and that's 3-1 odds. Okay, going into day 3. So you can follow along with me, by the way, if you just go to LOL Esports and you go to the world schedule, and you can click a day 1, day 2, day 3. They have columns there, and I'm just going to work right down the games. And then at the end, I'm going to predict. I'm going to share my standings for the teams once we get there. So please go ahead and do that if you like. Okay, CLG coming in day 3. They've had a day off now. Wait, did they? CLG played once. No. Yeah, they had a day off. They played day 1, first game. Now they're playing day 3, first game. And they lost to G2, by the way. So I'm calling this one for CLG. They're against Albus, Nox, Luna, and I think they're going to come in with adjustments from their first loss and odds of 2-1. Rox against G2. Rox is going to take it, putting themselves up 2-0 on the group, and 4-1 odds on that match. Flash Wolves versus C9. I'm calling for C9, surprisingly. I think this is going to be a really close game. Odds 1-1. Puts C9 up 2-0 on the group, and Flash Wolves are 1-1. IMEI versus SKT. I'm calling this one for SKT. I think they're going to be frustrated by their loss to CL. Who did they lose to? C9, they're going to be frustrated by their loss to C9, and they're going to come in really respectful of the draft in this game. And they're going to go 1-1. IMA is going to go down 0-2, and that's 4-1 odds on SKT there. Splice versus TSM, obviously, we're going to take it. And then RNG, 2-1 up over SSG 1-2. So this is another kind of upset, you might say, or like question mark. Who's going to take it? The second seed from China, the second seed from SSG, second seed from Korea, and I'm giving this 1-1 odds because I don't know, because obviously, like, I have really only watched SSG play, and I have never been able to watch a lot of like RNG games in this meta, so we'll see. All right, going into day 4, the final day of mix and match group stages, we have AHQ versus INTZ. I'm calling that one for AHQ, putting them up 2-1 in the group, and INTZ is now 0-3. Odds of 3-1 on that. EDG versus H2K is the second match of the day, and I'm calling that for EDG 3-0 now. H2K is going to get probably pounded in that one, maybe. I'm giving 4-1 odds. Albus knocks Luna 0-3 now, down to G2. Just going to pull out that victory. And they're going to go, I'm going to give that odds of like 2-1 because I obviously, again, I don't know much about the wildcard teams, and I think G2 is strong. Then we have CLG versus Rocks. I'm calling that one for Rocks. I don't think this is going to be an upset. I think CLG is going to go down 1 and 2 in the group, and Rocks is going to stay perfect. 4-1 odds. Then we have SKT versus Flash Wolves. I think SKT is going to take it in a hard-fought game, and I'm giving 1-1 odds because I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, and it can be turned by a couple key moments. And then finally, to round out the day, we have C9 versus IMA, and I'm calling that one for, oops, I didn't call it for anybody. I'm calling it for C9. Again, I don't know much about IMA, so I'm only going to give 2-1 odds because I don't know how the wildcard teams are going to turn out. Okay, now we get into the fun groups because this is going to be a bunch of teams playing one after the other. I think that there's momentum going on, and like tilting can go from one game into the next game really rapidly. And then at the end of the day, we're going to have the standings for the group. So day 5, we're going to kick off with Group A, and it's G2 versus Rocks right out of the gate. And I think that Rocks is going to take it, staying perfect at 4-0, and I'm going to give that 4-1 odds. Then we have Albus Nox Luna versus CLG. I think CLG is going to take it, although I'm questioning this one because it's a wildcard team. And I think that like it could be a really frantic, weird play style and maybe upset CLG there. But anyway, that puts CLG up 2-2 in the group. And I'm going to give that 2-1 odds because I'm not sure. Then we have CLG versus G2, and I think that G2 just lost to Rocks, had a break, come back on the riff. I think CLG is a very momentum-based team as well, and I think that CLG is going to take this in an upset in terms of seeding upset, and they're going to go 3-2, and G2 is going to go down 2-3 in the group. I'm giving that 1-1 odds because I'm not really sure, but that's my prediction. Albus Nox Luna now goes down 0-4 because they're facing Rocks, who now goes up to a perfect 5-0, and that's going to be 4-1 odds on that match. And then the 5th match of the day is G2 versus Albus Nox Luna, and G2 is going to take it. They've had another break, and they are going to end the group with that win, and 2-1 odds again because it's a wildcard team, so I don't really know much about them. And then we have Rocks versus CLG, and I think Rocks is going to smash. They're going to go 6-0, perfect in the group. And that was the same as Rocks 6-0, CLG 4-2, G2 3-3, and Albus Nox Luna 0-6. And so there's a couple things here. First of all, Albus Nox Luna could take a game off of any of these. Probably G2 and CLG they could take a game off of. I'm not sure they could take a game off of Rocks. And also that CLG versus G2 match on day 5 in my kind of setup here is going to be really predictive because one of those teams, whichever one wins it, is going 2nd seed, and the other one's going 3rd in the group. So that's going to be a key decider match for me. Okay, and so I think like it depends a lot, like how the Albus Nox Luna CLG match goes, if they manage to pull that off of them, how the G2 Rocks game goes. I think momentum on the day is going to play a part of that. Okay, day 6 starts off with EDG versus INTZ. EDG is going to take it, 5-1 odds. That's the strongest odds I have in the whole tournament, actually. even more than the first time, because I think that now we have a read on the meta. I think we're going to see a full week of games and a full week of training, and then we're going to come to the second week, and it's only going to benefit teams that can prep and train and understand like how to abuse meta, and it's only going to be a detriment to the wildcard teams, in my opinion. So they're going to get to practice cheese picks, which are good for the best of ones, and the core teams are going to practice like strong meta. And yeah, so I'm going to call this one a smash. AHQ versus H2K. I'm calling this for H2K this time. 1-to-1 odds though, because I'm not really sure how this matchup is going to turn out. We'll see. I've never seen AHQ play. I've seen H2K play, and yeah, I think again it's going to be a big question in terms of like how well H2K can pull plays together and how deep their construction of plays has gone in terms of like learning how to set up. They have H2K versus EDG. EDG is going to take it, going up 5-0 in the group, and that's 4-to-1 odds on that. Then INTZ versus AHQ to round out like the first four, and that's AHQ taking it 2-to-1 odds again because they're facing a wildcard team, so I'm not really sure. Then we have INTZ versus H2K. So I think that INTZ is a wildcard team, and they're going to be really momentum based, and they're going to be coming off of a loss to AHQ, and they're going to win in their last match of the day. So they're either going to tank or they're going to upset, and they're just going to draft whatever they want because it's their last match at Worlds. And so they're either going to go 0-6 or 1-5 here. And H2K is either going to go 3-3 or 2-4. So this could be a really important match, actually, in my playbook here. And I'm giving that like 1-to-1 odds because I think that INTZ can have a big momentum play here. And yeah, H2K could choke right there and go 2-4. So then we have AHQ versus EDG, and EDG is going to take it, going perfect 6-0 in the group, and that's going to put AHQ down 3-3. So we're going to have a tiebreaker between H2K and AHQ, and it's going to depend on two things. One, earlier in the day, H2K and AHQ are going to play, and the winner of that match is pretty important in terms of my like draw up here. And then this INTZ versus H2K match, like back-to-back versus INTZ's previous match, is going to be a heavy influencer on that second week. Okay, then we go into day 7. SSG versus TSM. Obviously, we're going to clean it out, sweep them off the rift. Then we have Splice versus RNG. Oops, I spelled it wrong. RNG. And I think Splice is going to upset here. I think they're going to have an advantage of 3 days of data from the first group stages and 4 days of practice, 4 or 5 days of practice. They're going to have a strong game plan, and they're going to come in really focused, and they're going to take the first game in a very clean execution. And RNG is going to be basically proactively pushed back defensively into their base over and over again. They're not going to be able to put together a single play, and they're not going to be able to bait Splice into any engages, and Splice is going to play off their vision, and they're going to do a really, really strong job closing out the game, and it's going to look beautiful. And they're going to go up 1-3 in the group, and RNG is going to drop 2-2. Obviously, they're not moving in places in the group at this point, but their scores are shifting. But I'm giving that 1-to-1 odds because it's a very delicate match. Then, of course, TSM plays Splice, so Splice is out of luck at this point. They're going to get just pushed over by us. You know that I'm not analyzing the TSM matches, by the way. I'm just calling them for us. So please don't weigh into that too much in terms of cockiness or not cockiness. That's just the way it is. I'm not giving any data away to my team or to my opponents at this point. Samsung Galaxy playing RNG. Calling that for Samsung. And I think that this is because Samsung is going to bounce back from their loss to us in the first match of the day, and RNG is not going to bounce back from their loss to Splice. They're going to question their draft a little bit because they've had like 4 days to prep, and then they're going to get out-drafted by Mr. Tomato Canyon. And I love you, Yolato, by the way. I love you. And so they're going to go into that a little shaky. It's going to be like a close match, but then SSG is going to swing it. And I'm giving that 1-to-1 odds. Then we have Splice versus Samsung Galaxy, and I'm calling that one for Samsung Galaxy. Coming off of the previous win versus RNG, they're going to have strong momentum going to the next game. They're going to be confident in their picks, and they're going to go 3-3 in the group. And Splice is going to unfortunately go 1-5 in their first Worlds appearance, which surprised me, but that's how it is. And I'm giving that 2-1 odds. And then we have the final match of the day, RNG versus TSM. And of course, we're going to crush them in a 6-0 sweep of the group. Congratulations, TSM. Woo! Okay. Day 8, the Reckoning. IMA versus Flashwolves to kick it off. Flashwolves takes it, 2-1 odds. C9 versus SKT to follow up. SKT has found their form and their picks and their way of playing the game, and they're getting stronger and stronger every day, and they're going to take it 2-1. Flashwolves are C9. Unfortunately, C9 is a very momentum-based team, and they are going to come out of their SKT loss. They were very hopeful. They were thinking like, oh, we're finally the Korean Breakers. We're going to take it down. We beat SKT last time. We've got this in the bag. And then they lose to SKT, and then they go into the Flashwolves set. Flashwolves also is a very resilient team. C9 is going to already have that loss under their belt. They're going to go off stage for 10 minutes, go back on stage, and lose to them. Unfortunately, and I'm giving that 1-1 odds because I'm not so sure. Maybe they turn it around. Maybe they're very mindful and they just like recenter and focus for the next match, and they go in clean slate. Then we have SKT versus IMA, and I don't know much about the wildcard teams. I'm still calling that for SKT, giving it 2-1 odds, though I gave low odds for all the wildcard matches, pretty much I think except for the EDG INTZ one. And then we have IMA versus C9. Oh, by the way, the reason is because the main disruptor to strategic play, which is what we play at the highest levels, and map-based play and play setup, the biggest disruptor to that is that there's a bunch of assumptions that are made in play setup. So like you set up for a play and you do all these steps, and those steps are designed or like done because the opposing team is going to be trying to contradict those steps to prevent you from taking your advantage. And so you have to go through a certain set of steps in order to like not get caught or punished for skipping them. But then what happens is like teams have like an unspoken agreement, or they understand that, okay, that team is going to be taking that step, therefore I cannot contest it, therefore I will go here and do this other thing, and then that builds layer on layer of complexity in the play until there's very basic things that people can do to surprise you, like gank at level 3. Surprising, even though it's like not done that often, because if it doesn't work, it sets you way back, right? So all of a sudden it works because people assume that you won't do it. So I think that like this is what wildcard teams bring to this kind of tournament, and if they have parity in terms of mechanical prowess, which a lot of them do nowadays, then they can come on the Rift and they can surprise and they can outplay in terms of skirmishes through interrupting the setup of teams with superior macro or like organized play. They can interrupt their setup if they're not resilient enough in their setup and they skip too many steps, or the steps are reliant on things that the assumptions that are broken by the wildcard team, right? But I think that EDG, it doesn't matter how many times you interrupt their setup. I think that they just outclass mechanically INTZ like in an unbelievable way, and that it doesn't matter how many times INTZ tries to gank a lane. I think that the lane will just kill them 2v1 or 1v2 or 2v3. So that's just my prediction. But SKT versus IMA, I'm calling it 2-1 odds because I think it's a similar situation, but like not as different in terms of pure raw mechanical skill. I think, yeah, okay, that's what I think. All right, then we have IMA versus C9. I'm calling this one for C9. I think they're going to go off stage. They're going to have a break. They're going to talk a lot. They're going to maybe change a pick or two, and then they're going to come back on, and they're going to be really focused, and they're going to take IMA. IMA is going to be coming off of a crushing loss versus SKT, going straight back on stage and losing to C9. Then we have Flashwolves versus SKT. Now, SKT has won 2 games in the day. It was like they had a break for the first game. They played. They won. It was pretty easy. Second game, they had a break. Third game, they won. It was pretty easy. Fourth game, they had a break. Then the fifth game. Then the last game, they come on stage. They have a pretty good record in the group. They're about to go up, like 5-1, and then they're just going to be a little bit too loose, and Flashwolves is going to be a little bit too committed, and Flashwolves is going to come surprise them and take it. And I'm putting that 1-1 odds because I'm not really sure. And all of a sudden, look what we have, a 3-way tie. SKT, C9, Flashwolves, 4-2, all of them. And then IMA, unfortunately, is 0-6. So, is this even possible? Did I do my math wrong? Not really sure. I think I did it right. Let's see. 6 games, 6 games, 6 games. I'm not really sure if that's even possible. I thought I counted stuff along the way properly. Uh, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But anyway, um, yeah, then we have a tie. And we'll have some tiebreakers. I think you can only have a three-way tie. You can't have a four-way tie. So I think the tiebreakers are sorted out by like a whole bunch of complex rules, which I can't really figure out on my own here. And I'm already tired and it's late at night and I gotta go to bed and prep for tomorrow's group stages. So I'm going to end this video and upload it. And thank you all for coming and watching today. And I hope that you enjoyed my predictions. And go ahead and make your own. I will link a link to the Google document, or like to this document that I have all my notes on, so you can like review it, and I'll put that in the description down below. And also in the description down below you will find information about these ads here, because as always my show is not sponsored by a sponsor, it's sponsored by me, and these three things are the things that I sponsored with, basically. So one of them being my flagship training program, the MAC program, which you find on mindgames.gg/MAC. Mindfulness Acceptance Commitment is the name of the game with that program, and it is a 47 video series over 47 days. You can do it every single day. You can do it 3 days a week minimum, every single day maximum, and it's anywhere from 10 to 25 minutes of mindfulness plus a lecture teaching in acceptance commitment. And this is adapted for Sport 2004 from like the education field, and then in 2014 by me into eSport. And this is about the third version of it that I've done. It has a couple worksheets now, which unfortunately went away, disappeared, and I'm building them back in, but the worksheets are not really the important part. The video training is the important part, so check that out if you want. It's inexpensive right now because obviously my website is not finished being remade and the worksheets are missing, so if you get it now, you're locked in at that price forevermore, and even when the editions are put back in, you will like have access to it forever. It's like one of those things that you buy and it's always upgraded and you go along with it. And then there's the 5-minute journal, which you see right there right now, and that is a journal that I use myself, buy them for my friends, use them with every pro team I've ever worked with, and it's a wonderful product. You don't need to buy it. You can just get an empty journal and you can go to their webpage and you can look at a little like image of like what's in the journal, and you can do that every single day by yourself. Or you can buy the journal or the app and you can do it on a nice beautiful like book that they printed for you, and or like on your phone if that's what you want to do. And the reason that the link is here is you need to click that if you want me to get a benefit from you purchasing it, because it's an affiliate link. Somebody pointed this out the other day, that it was ironic that I support performance-based pay, not ironic, coincidental that I support performance-based pay, and I also, instead of taking sponsorship, I took an affiliation, which means that I only get paid if people buy it. It's performance-based, right? So it's not like they're paying me money. I'm saying, hey, this product is amazing. I'm staking my reputation on this product, and I'm saying this is what I use, and if you want one, buy one, and if you don't worry about it. Do it for free, or watch my other videos where I explain how to do it and talk about gratefulness, or don't do it at all. And if you don't do it, like, nobody loses anything. I don't lose anything. This company doesn't lose anything. You don't lose anything. And if you do buy it, everybody wins. They sell something, I get a percentage, and you get an awesome product. So it's like win-win-win. I like it. Yeah, and that's performance-based, right? So that's why they pointed out it was really coincidental. That was in a YouTube comment down below. By the way, I read all of the YouTube comments that I can, and I comment on them. You can see in my last few videos I've had a little bit more nighttime because we're trying to adjust to the jet lag here and get back into the American swing of things, so we're staying up later to try to force ourselves into performance in the group stages, which is going to be played like super late compared to LCS. So I've been like crunching out those YouTube comments, and you can discuss with me there any topic that you're interested in. Although if you have a question for my show, I would prefer that you ask it on Twitter so that it pops into my automated scraper and I can actually pull it from my spreadsheet into the show. But anyway, then I also have my reading list, which is free. and you just sign up. And I'm writing it right now, so it's not coming out yet, but you will get a series of emails first with my suggested list of tools and books that I have used throughout my career and continue to use. Further ones that I discover, you will be the first to know about them. And then secondly, I'll be sending out synopses of all of these materials so that you don't actually have to read them yourself. You can just read the summary and take the wonderful information from them. And that's the video, guys. Those are my world predictions, and I will see you in group stages tomorrow, where we will attempt to pull off the impossible, never done before feat of getting out of group stages. I think for the second time in TSM. Let's just focus on like winning the first group stage match, and we'll see how we do from that point.